From the many stories on the internet, reaching ghosts, goblins, demons, and even insane people. The stories that are either written to be scary or tell an interesting story based on real life. This is Adolescent Core 2008.
If there's one thing you can't trust, it's a TV network. Otherwise, you might as well just be gullible to think that nothing bad happens on TV. I'm a 32-year-old woman with two adopted kids of my own. They are both 5 years old and they share the same interest, mostly on TV shows. I was always busy with stuff like work and family emergencies that my cousin's family were going through. I never get any time to spend any time with my kids and watch their favorite show, which was Thomas and Friends. I've seen a couple episodes to know what it is about, and I understand why adults even like it as well. It's a charming show with a level of intelligence for small kids who are still learning, and I found out that this show was based on a book series made by a guy named Wilbert Audrey. I even got my hands on his books as well, which later became a gift for my two kids. The show that they watch on is a TV network where they air all sorts of kid shows because I don't believe in them watching most shows on PBS Kids. I have my own way of teaching my kids how to be smart. Ironic because I wasn't smart enough to know much about this old and independent network that only relied on Thomas and Friends to keep the network up. There were other shows too, but it mostly played Thomas episodes because after their first official movie release in theaters, kids just like mine were starting to fall in love with this blue tank engine. It's not like I have a problem with it. I'm totally fine. I remember one specific time where they were about to air an episode of Thomas and Friends called Stepney Gets Lost. Now, this is one of the episodes I've seen with my kids, and I know about how dark it is. But I'm not going to complain, as other kids shows had darker episodes or tackled serious situations. This episode was nothing. You would expect me to say the cliche of how it played normally at first, and you'd be right, because it really did, and that wasn't a lie. The only problem I had was that the narrator's voice was louder than the music in the background. Stepney goes to the quarry on Sodor, which was the same quarry that a diesel named Mavis worked. The episode occasionally glitched or froze on a random frame for a few seconds before the video speeds up a bit just to catch up with the sound. My kids didn't give a single crap, just as long as the episode is viewable. That night, Stepney was leaving back to his home. He goes on the wrong line and ends up at the smelter's yards. Two diesels showed up behind him and pushed him under a huge claw. Yes, this is actually in the episode for those of you who've never heard about this episode. You're free to look it up. As I was expected to see the claw come down and slowly about to grab him. It came to a stop right over Stepney for maybe longer than a few seconds. I was waiting for the part where Sir Tom had come to save Stepney at the last second. Unfortunately, he never came. The claw started wounding up in a sound I could describe as a snake hiss, before it went down quickly and forcefully puncturing Stepney's cabin boiler repeatedly. Stepney was screaming bloody murder through all of this. The claw kept twisting the poor engine apart and destroying every single part of him. It picked him up by the smoke box door, puncturing a gaping, bleeding hole in the face. There wasn't any blood coming from the engine except the face. Imagery was already enough. The claw then picked up each individual part of Stepney, one by one, as it dumped him into the incinerator next to him. And then the episode just ended like that. I was in disbelief. This was not how the episode was supposed to end. And I'm pretty sure my kids knew that as well. I was heartbroken by the fact that a character on Thomas and Friends actually died on screen. Maybe the reason why is because despite knowing they aren't real, you have a connection towards them, kind of like a family member. You also get to know the characters as well. So watching Stepney getting scrapped was like watching a family member slowly dying. And you don't need blood and guts just to do the job of scaring the audience. You just need to watch them slowly suffer. It cut to the next program, which was another Thomas episode. It was Duncan Gets Spooked. I turned off the TV and tried to convince my kids that they had a nightmare. I was lying to them, and I was lying to myself. We know what we just witnessed. It was a good thing I even recorded. That night, when I put my kids into bed, I went down to the living room and took the VHS out of the VCR and decided to watch it and figure out why this gruesome ending of an episode aired on TV. I got to the part where Stepney was pushed under the claw. I noticed something I didn't see the first time. Looking closer, the model of Stepney was slightly darker and the face looked like the exact same at first, until I realized this was also different. There were smudges on his face and the clay sculpt looked rough and not smooth. I could say the same thing for Ari and Bert as well. This was clearly not made for Britt Offcroft whatsoever. This was made by an individual who put all the effort into making this. I contacted the TV network and told them about the disturbing episode me and my kids saw. I've waited hours on end before I got a message from them. Apparently, they have had problems since this afternoon, and they found out the reason why. Somebody tried to hijack the network and put this ending on. They don't know who did it, but they have called the FBI to come investigate about the hijack. And as they are writing this, they have caught someone by the name of Sid. They still don't know why he did it, and he hasn't answered that question even after they detained him. They told me they'll send me some treats as a way to apologize about the experience we went through. And although it won't get rid of the image I've seen on the episode, it does calm me down. The next day, the network was taken off the TV, probably because they faced a lawsuit against many shocked parents who've also seen the episode. But when I looked up the website, it said that they ran out of money and went bankrupt. The TV network was just trying to hide this for a long time, but it's about time I say something. And I might find a way to show this on YouTube for everyone to see. That is, if I don't get copyrighted.